Good afternoon and welcome to the Cabinet Member for Children, Families and Education decision meeting. I'm Councillor Susie Horton. I am the Cabinet Member for Children, Families and Education. Please be assured that we put appropriate cleansing and social distancing measures in place and ensure that this meeting is undertaken in a COVID secure manner. Welcome. That's okay? I've just started. I'm just doing the intro, so don't worry. If the continuous fire alarm sounds, please evacuate the room. There's no planned fire alarm. And don't attempt to use the lifts, and meet at Queen Victoria's statue in the Guildhall Square. And please sign out when you leave the building, if you signed in. Just draw everyone's attention to the fact this meeting will be live streamed. Everyone speaking will be on camera. Members of the press and public also permitted to record this, but there aren't any here at the moment. Please can everyone use the microphones and remember to switch them off when they have finished. And I will start with introductions. Actually, I'll start. Karen. I'm going to go left. Do you want me to come back?
Karen Martin, Democratic Services.
Jeanette.
Councillor Jeanette Smith, my last meeting as a PPP representative on this committee.
Welcome.
Councillor Terry Norton, Conservative.
Welcome.
Judith Smythe, Councillor for St Jude Ward.
Welcome, Judith.
Yeah. Hi, Mike Stoneman, Deputy Director, Education.
Alison Critchley, Head of Sufficiency and Resources in Education.
Alison Edgerton, Group Accountant, Children's, Families and Education and Finance.
Angela Mann, Finance Manager for Children's, Families and Education.
Sarah Daly, Director of Children, Families and Education.
And welcome to all the officers as well. Thank you. Apologies for absence. I've not received any. I don't think we have any. I think we're all here. Second agenda item is declarations of members' interests. So I will kick off with I am Vice Chair Governors at Craneswater Junior School.
Yes, and my normal one, I am a paid official of Unison for Hampshire branch.
Yep, same again. I work at Mayfield School, albeit for an external company.
Okay, I think that's it for this one. I remember this time, Judith. Okay, so we'll go on to the first of the reports, which is item 3, which is the Children, Families and Education Portfolio Budget Monitoring 21-22, quarter 3 already.
Thank you. It's recommended that Cabinet Member notes the Children, Families and Education Portfolio Forecast, revenue and capital budget positions and mitigating actions as at the end of December 2021. The projected outturn is 4.3 million more than the budget for revenue, of which 1.9 million relates to COVID-19. The majority of the overspend is in the looked after children area, and it can be broken down into 1.3 million in placements, £900,000 pressure in care leavers, and 0.6 million in unaccompanied asylum-seeking minor care leavers and the under-18s. There's additional pressures of 300,000 in strategic posts being covered by temporary arrangements, £300,000 pressure on family safeguarding due to a small number of exceptionally high-cost placements for children with disabilities, £300,000 pressure relating to additional social workers and team leaders in response to increased cases due to COVID-19, and £100,000 on homeschool transport due to additional routes due to COVID. The report details the action plan to mitigate the current revenue financial pressures, and they're in paragraph 4.1. In terms of the capital programme, it is projected to stay within budget. The report asks for approval for the 21-22 SEND capital grant to be added to the education capital programme for special educational needs accommodation. And I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you so much, Angela. Are there any specific questions? I know we've talked about this a lot. We know where the budget pressures are. We know that it's looked after children. We know that it's care leavers. We know that it's COVID. We don't know exactly the impact of COVID, but we know that they haven't helped us with some of the progress we were making around the budget pressures. But I don't know if anyone's got any particular questions on this. No? No? Thank you very much. In which case, the recommendations are that I note the Children and Families Education Portfolio forecast revenue and capital budget positions and mitigating actions at the end of December 21 and approve the addition of the 1.18 Special Educational Needs Capital Grant to the Accommodation for Special Educational Needs and propose that there's capital transfers between the schemes previously requested as set out in paragraph 6.6 and Appendix 1. Thank you very much indeed. So we will go on to the second item, second report, I should say, item 4, which is the DSG 2021-2022 Quarter 3 Budget Monitoring. Over to you.
Thank you. This is a regular quarterly report which updates the Cabinet member on the forecast outturn position based on the expenditure for the third quarter of the 21-22 financial year. Overall, the budget is forecast to underspend by just under 1.2 million. This relates to funding for pupils with education, health and care plans in mainstream schools, special schools, alternative provision and out-of-city placements, the reasons for which are actually detailed in the report. It should be noted that, as in previous years, these forecasts are likely to change as the academic year progresses. As previously reported, the Department of Education has changed the timing of the adjustments to the early years block for 21-22 due to the national lockdowns. Whilst we're expecting the funding to reduce by approximately 1.2 million, this will not create a pressure within the early years budget as the expenditure is expected to reduce by the same amount. Finally, Section 4 sets out the changes to the dedicated school grant funding allocation received in November 21, which relates to additional funding for the high needs block following a successful challenge on the import-export data. The Cabinet member is asked to note the forecast year-end position for the dedicated schools grant as at the 31st December 21, with the associated explanations contained within the report, and approve the budget adjustment to the post-16 element 3 top-up by £12,000. And I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Are there any questions from other members? Nope. I think it's gone through Schools Forum, and it's just that adjustment with the element 3 top up for post 16. So I note the forecast budget position of the DSG as of 31st of December 21, together with the associated explanations, and approve the budget adjustment to the post 16 element 3 top up by £12,000. Thank you very much indeed. Okay, so we come on to the next report, item 5, which is an update on Education Capital Programme. And Alison is going to present this, so I'll hand over to you.
Thank you. So yes, this is the update on the Education Capital Programme and reports progress on a range of schemes, in particular schemes to deliver additional places for children with special educational needs, 2 small projects with secondary schools to make sure that we've got enough secondary places for all children, an update on the condition work, and also a brief update on the plans to replace our education management system. The sort of theme across the projects, we're making good progress, but because of the pressures that have been noted in the other reports in terms of increasing costs, particularly of capital projects associated with COVID, Brexit, energy prices, there is a significant upward pressure, and therefore we've had to do quite a lot of work working very closely with schools and MATs to reprofile and in some cases prioritise schemes so that we can do what we need to do to provide sufficient places and work on our priority schemes with some other things having to be put on the back burner until we know about where there might be some additional funding. So that's the report. Very happy to take questions.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions from members? Councillor Smythe.
I used to be Chair of Governors at Penhale Infant School, and I just wondered, purely for my curiosity, because I haven't managed to visit recently, where the Inclusion Centre is on the site.
It's on the Penhill Road side.
So the Penhill
Next.
Road at the back of the school, there's they've put in a couple of classrooms there. That's where it's located.
Is it where the Sure Start Centre used to be, or the early years centre?
I don't know. Not
It's
sure.
next to the Lantern.
It's
If you're looking at the Lantern,
you know where
it's
the Harbour School used to be.
Yeah.
The provision there on that road, Penhill Road. Yeah,
I know.
just at the front. Whether it's where the Sure Start provision
No,
parts,
it's
I
not.
don't know.
It's not.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
I'll pop up.
Have a
and
look,
at
yeah.
some stage, yeah. And what's happening to the Harbour School extension there? Is that remaining? Do you remember at one stage there were some tentative proposals to increase the site to make it a through primary school rather than just
Yeah,
an
that
infant
was
school?
kind of all shelved in the end because of other schemes that we were taking forward. And of course, what we did with the Harbour School site was to refurbish that, and that is now the Lantern, a satellite of the Mary Rose Academy, providing specialist school places there for complex SEND and autism. So, so no further plans in terms of an all-through concept. On
So
that
the
site.
building has been used by the Mary Rose
Absolutely,
Academy?
yeah.
Which I was also a governor on.
Yes,
Thank you very
yeah.
much. Thank you.
Thank you, Judith. In actual fact, it doesn't seem like 5 minutes ago that we were approving that ground floor of what's become the Lantern as a temporary measure, an emergency temporary measure. And then actually it's been so successful that last year there's the next floor up, and the next stage of that will be investing further in the building to make it, but it's really worked well. So it's really good. Thank you.
Overall, Chair, I'm very glad that site has been retained in educational use. I think it's quite important we don't sort of sell off bits of schools.
No, I mean the building's not in great condition, so we will be coming forward with plans to secure the long-term life of that building, which will cost in excess of £1 million, but we think that would represent good value because the provision itself is working really well on that site, and Mary Rose Academy are really pleased the way it's going. Yeah.
I hope you'll always do a comparison with building new, because it's a very old school with very old fire escapes and high ceilings and very expensive to heat. So I hope you.
Oh, absolutely, and we've done an option analysis already around that, and we think it does represent very good value. But clearly, when we come forward with the bid, we'll include all that information.
Thank you.
You want to comment?
Yeah, so probably somewhat disconnected to the buildings programme, but I think when we're talking about numbers, it's probably important to highlight. So how confident are we that with numbers in secondary being tight, schools that do feel the need to move children on, exclusions and things like that, are able to do that? If numbers are tight, it would suggest that it's hard for schools to take in various children, but obviously there needs to be a natural movement when children have exhausted their options. Are we confident that that is a process that schools can continue to do?
Do you want to take that, Mike?
I mean, obviously, no, it's all right. I mean, obviously we try and avoid exclusions and movement of pupils, but where that happens through the Fair Access Protocol, then with the small numbers we're talking about, yes, there is enough flexibility, and we make sure there is some. It's equitable, so we don't see certain schools taking on more hard-to-pupils than other schools. For example, there is a system in place through the Fair Access Protocol that makes sure that balance is correct. But yes, in terms of sufficiency in places, we're not concerned. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, my questions are based on 7.3 and 7.4 of the report, and 7.3 says about condition projects for schools expected to use devolved formula capital DFC. What is that, and what's the expected contributions from schools on the agreed contribution of methodology? What is that? And 7.4 factored into the growth fund. I think what I'm concerned about is schools may get this pot of money, but these projects, especially condition projects and capital projects, are really expensive. So does it cover the costs, basically?
I'll answer some of those. So the Devolved Formula Capital Fund, the DFC, is an allocation that's provided by the Department of Education for all state-funded schools. It's based on a formula. The money goes direct to the school. With regards to the contribution policy, what we do is, I haven't actually got the details in front of me to go through it exactly, but it is based on the cost of the project, the size of the school's balances, and it then works on a multiplier to say how much the school will contribute towards the project. With regards to condition projects, they are funded by the local authority, but the school makes a contribution towards that project using the devolved formula capital fund. So it's funding that comes into the school, it's not necessarily from their own funds.
So do schools ring fence that money for building? I'm just thinking, when I was chair of governors of Milton Park, we had major building works there. We didn't have any money to give to anybody, so I'm not sure that was a good idea, but it might.
That's why it's based on the balances. So we look at the school's balances. If their balances are small, when we put them through the formula, they could end up with a zero contribution. But if their balances are large, they would obviously pay more because they've got the balances as well. Just to clarify about the Growth Fund, the Growth Fund is a formula that's agreed through Schools Forum, and it's funded through the DSG. So the funding comes from the DFE to the authority, and again that's based on a formula depending on the number of additional pupils that go into the school through the sufficiency programme and the increased number on roll, and that will last until the school is full. So if it's a 5-year, like a secondary school, they will get that funding for the full 5 years until the school is full, and the pupils then appear on the census data, and it falls into the normal funding for the school.
Thank you very much. Before I just approve the recommendations, I want to place on record my thanks to Alison for doing quite an amazing job with this, because as most people know, Chris Williams is off sick. And when you add into that, there's a paper coming to Cabinet next week, which is actually specifically titled COVID-19, Brexit and Other Factors Impacting Construction Costs. Very interesting report. But actually, when you put that in the mix and stepping up to a new role, I think, and my demands about the fact that we're committed still moving forward with all our aspirations and aims around special educational needs and inclusion. I think I have to place my record on thanks for that. Thank you.
I, of course, echo that, but what I'm curious about is paragraph 324 on page 3, the notion of investigating the creation of an independent learning area. And I don't know whether it's independent from the NHS or independent from the school. It's not quite entirely clear, but just a little explanation of what that might involve would be very interesting.
Primary.
Yes, I think actually the word independent, it's neither. It's about the young people themselves being supported in their independent learning. And yes, this is a project with the NHS. The idea being that by having resources that link to a range of careers in health within the school, that might encourage young people to pursue those careers and realise actually it's not just about being a doctor or a nurse. There are a huge range of opportunities within the NHS. There is some funding potentially from the NHS for this. We're providing support for the feasibility study, and with if it went ahead, it's an area of the school that's currently used as changing rooms. Bringing that back in for curriculum use then means that the school could potentially take some additional places, which will reduce that pressure that we're seeing in the centre of the city at the moment. So that's the sort of rationale. But I think actually it's the learning that's independent rather than the provision.
You can't tell from this sentence.
No, it's reading it.
Has this been done elsewhere? And will it encompass everything, right from being a brain surgeon to being a cleaner?
So I don't know. I'll check and come back to you about whether it's happened elsewhere. But certainly the emphasis is on the breadth of careers and that full range of opportunities.
Just to add on the NHS, so just say what we're looking to do with Priory is to establish an NHS hub which will also serve other schools as well. So there is a citywide benefit as well, and as Alison said, it's the full breadth of careers that you can have in the NHS.
That was my question, thank you.
Yeah.
I was also interested in, I hope that it doesn't mean there'll be a diminution of secure changing room facilities. Both my children went to Priory, and it's a very, very tight site, as we all know. It won't mean that there's less willingness of pupils to do sports and things, will it?
The feasibility study will be to work through those things and make sure that it doesn't adversely affect the young people's experience in school. So that's what they're exploring through feasibility.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I think Mike answered one of my questions really about whether other schools can come and use that as a site. I think it sounds fantastic. The only question, I guess, for me is if successful, is there a plan to roll that out to other schools north of the city, various other places, so that people aren't limited geographically in terms of the education they get there?
Yeah, I can't answer that question in full because it does depend on the NHS. I mean, I think they're looking to see how this develops at Priory. I mean, if it's really successful, then potentially, but it would be subject to our local NHS partners. But yeah, I can certainly take that one away and suggest that if it is successful. Yeah.
Thank you, everyone. Good questions. So the recommendations are: note the progress on the accommodation for special educational needs. Project notes the council received the SEND capital grant, very welcome, of 1.18 million. Yes, okay. Notes the schemes agreed with me since the last report, the progress on the secondary sufficiency schemes, the urgent schools conditions projects for the LA maintained schools, the announcement of the further funding, which we wait for with bated breath to see what we get, and the placement of the education case management system project. So note all those. And that brings us to the end of our agenda. Before we finish, this is the last meeting of the year before we go into PERDA and elections, and who knows what happens. So I would like to take this opportunity to thank my colleagues. I think actually we are a very good example of challenge and collaboration between members and opposition representatives, and I thank you all for the robust conversations we've had over the year.
Yeah, can I take this opportunity, because it could be my last, or could sort of carry on after the election, who knows. But I'd like to thank officers. They've given me sort of time and always answered all my questions, and sort of fellow colleagues on this, but also to the chair, because I think you've chaired this superbly for the last 2 years. Is it 2 years? And long may that continue after May.
I'm in the same boat, and I would echo everything that Jeanette has said.
Thank you very much, everyone, and thank you to all the officers, and have a lovely evening.